In this video, we'll be discussing diet culture, disordered eating, and fat activist Virgie Tovar. And in order to make sure that we are all on the same page here, we are going to start with a video of Virgie's that I'm sure many of you are familiar with, called Take the Cake. If you're not familiar with this video, it will give you a very good introduction to who Virgie is. But as a trigger warning, please view this meme because this video is a lot. So this video is about what Virgie calls a
CRFI. A cake-related fatphobic incident is that moment when it's time to eat delicious cake and it's interrupted by a moralizing impulse.
And of the many things that are wrong with this video,
The person who's cutting the cake, almost invariably a woman, must do some disproportionate amount of labor in order to accommodate their need to feel superior.
Okay, so now that I've properly re-triggered myself and watched the most problematic and toxic thing that Virgie is pushing here, and something that's very common within the fat acceptance movement in general, is that trying to control your eating in any way, shape, or form is disordered eating fueled only by some deep-seated hatred of your appearance. So here is a post from her Instagram from a few days ago. Dieting is not a sign of success, it is a sign of woundedness. And part of the caption reads, "My current response to people dieting equals, I hate that this person is wounded by fat phobia. I hate that we live in a culture that makes people feel like something is wrong with them." First off, I'm not going to sit here and say that diet culture doesn't exist. If by diet culture we're referring to the value that we currently place on being thin as a society and the tendency for many, if not most women, to spend their entire lives dissatisfied with their body, flitting from one diet to the next. This is an undeniable fact. More people have eating disorders than ever before, and I'm sure there are millions of people, men and women, quietly struggling with their bodies who don't quite fit the ED category. I agree with her here, and I think everyone agrees with the basic premise that people should be accepting of their bodies no matter what size they are. But then she kind of gets into this whole bit.
Controlling how much you eat is part of what it means to be a, quote, good woman. This kind of behavior is a way for people to keep other people in check through food moralizing, surveillance, and policing. These are the mechanisms that are at the core of diet culture and weight control.
Is she really saying that the only reason someone would ask for a smaller piece of an incredibly underwhelming looking cake is to keep up appearances? To show others that you are indeed dieting and you care about the way your body looks? Our first response might be to think that, no, that's not what she means. But as we look deeper into her content, it really does seem to mean just that. Here's something that she posted on Instagram not too long ago, with part of the caption reading, "Someone asked me what I thought of Overeaters Anonymous. Answer, I don't believe there's such a thing as overeating. We don't need more control in our relationship to food. We need less. Eat what you want. Eat when you want. Eat where you want. Eat as much as you want." People are dying out here, okay? You can't just say stuff like that. So the reason I showed you that is to demonstrate that it's not conjecture or hyperbole to say that Virgie believes in making zero attempts to control your intake of food and insists that if you do, it's because of your internalized fat phobia. Okay, so that we can be properly infuriated by the audacity of this to begin with, let's consider Virgie's audience. Virgie Tovar is not preaching to people who want to lose 20 pounds of vanity weight. She's speaking to women, including a lot of young and vulnerable girls who spent the majority of their lives struggling with their weight and who are potentially very obese. Women who have presumably tried a million fad diets in their lifetime, who, maybe have trouble with binge eating, and who are turning to her content to try and find a way to make peace with that situation. To those people, her message is, if you so much as ask for a smaller slice of cake, you are a vain tool of patriarchy, and you're not body positive, and you're basically engaging in disordered eating. That's what her message is to those vulnerable women.
The idea that you can position yourself as superior to others through self-control and self-denial is super sexist. CRFIs have a history of creating a hierarchy among women and ultimately in maintaining misogynist expectations.
First off, How is asking for a smaller slice of cake in any way, shape, or form unreasonable? Maybe this person has a history of saying yes to every crappy office party cake and any other craving they happen to have. And they're in the midst of teaching themselves how to have more control over food, a skill that will greatly benefit them long term. Or maybe this person wants a big ass slice of cake, but they're practicing self-denial because they hate the way that it makes their body feel, so they're fighting their craving to do what's really in their best interests. And asking for a little less to spare themselves a sugar crash, headache, or stomach ache a few hours later. The point is, it's not always self-denial to turn down cake, and it's not always fueled by the desire to be a size 2. There are plenty of solid reasons to not want to eat cake that have absolutely nothing to do with the way that you look. I can't believe that's something that even needs to be said. And yeah, many of the best reasons to say no to cake have to do with health and longevity. It always blows my mind that the discussion of health in any way, shape, or form is something that's basically not even present in the healthy at every size movement discussions. Listen to the definition of health Virgie gave a magazine.
To me, health is about loving my body, eating without shame, and promoting a world where every single person lives a life with dignity and respect, regardless of size or health status.
Yeah, that's nice and all, Virgie, but it actually has nothing to do with bodily health. Take body weight out of the discussion. How is loving your body running into the ground with addictive, nutrient-devoid food? If you care about something, you take care of it the best way that you possibly can, and the single greatest tools we have at our disposal are our nutrition and exercise. Telling people that they're a tool of diet culture because they're trying to make healthier choices, I don't see who that statement is intended to help. It's one thing to say, hey, instead of worrying about your body weight, focus on eating mostly nutritious foods, getting daily exercise, and dealing with any psychological barriers to both. And your body weight will sort itself out over time. It's another thing to preach to vulnerable individuals that health is about eating whatever you want, whenever you want, eating without shame. That's health? That trying to control what you eat is a bigger threat to your life than dying of the litany of complications that accompany being obese? Virgie Tovar and other fat activists seem to give food, in particular unhealthy food, so much value and power. They seem to live in this world where they're unable to view turning down cake as anything other than masochism. It really makes you wonder what triggered Virgie so deeply that she felt she needed to make this video in the first place. And we're in luck because there's actually an accompanying article that she wrote about this. And I was so happy about finding this because it basically confirmed to me all of my suspicions about her motivations for making this monstrosity to begin with.
Recently, a CRFI happened to me at a birthday party. There was a very expensive and very gorgeous cake. Chocolate. I was ready for that cake. I was pretty sure that there was a ganache inside of it. Sure, there was buttercream on the outside, but I could sense the sneaky ganache. In the midst of my ganache reverie, I was interrupted by a woman who felt it very important to convey that the slices of cake that my friend was making were too large.
So there we have it, the reason that this video exists. Someone got between Virgie and her cake and a suspected but unconfirmed ganache. Although we're only talking about this one video here, I did look into Virgie's content more thoroughly before making this video. And it's not conjecture to say that food plays a very important role in Virgie's life. Her writing is often hyperbolic, but there's always intense descriptions of food. Tons of obsessive moments with food throughout her stories. Her podcast is called the Rebel Eaters Club, and she has written an entire article on how she dumped someone because they didn't like Ruffle chips and sour watermelon candy. She also made this video with her friends.
Die, Kale, die!
Fuck you, vegetables! Die, veggie scum!
Look at what we can do when we work together to vanquish patriarchy! I mean vegetables.
Wow, Virgie, seems like you have a really great relationship with food. All foods are equal, right? Except vegetables, though. Fuck those guys. It's not normal to obsess over food to this degree, where it's the topic of every conversation, where it takes this starring role in your life, and you feel like you're depriving yourself if you turn down a smaller slice of cake. Certain foods are addictive. That's a fact. And depending on your genetics and life experiences, certain people are more at risk for developing a food addiction when continuously exposed to certain types of foods. And it sounds like Virgie Tovar just might be one of those people, and there's no shame in that. I found what Virgie says next in the article, though, to be the most telling of all. She goes on to say that this woman's request for a smaller slice of cake shifted the energy in the party immediately.
Certainly it shifted my unequivocal ganache lust into a flurry of frustration. It stirred up old feelings and the recollection of my weight cycling food restriction years. Immediately her words made me consider that perhaps she was judging my slice of cake, and that perhaps it was not a safe environment in which I could glut on cake freely. Because honestly, we all know that no one just judges their own slice of cake if they're a cake judger.
So wait, Virgie Tovar is supposed to be this figurehead of body acceptance and confidence and self-love. And yet, everything that she just said suggests that she's incredibly insecure and doesn't accept herself as she is. Why should someone else's decision to have less cake make her feel bad about herself? What does that have to do with her? If Virgie is so secure in her body weight and she truly loves being fat, then why is someone else's behavior that's not directed at her enough to make her feel unsafe and judged? If some girl at a party is judging you because you're eating more cake than her, does that not say more about her than you? If Virgie has it all figured out and she pities this woman because she's a tool of patriarchy, then why does Virgie feel uncomfortable eating the amount of cake she wants to eat, while the woman is totally fine going against what is most likely the social norm at a fucking birthday party with Virgie Tovar present to ask for a smaller slice of cake? You may have also noticed that the comments are turned off on this video, and they're restricted on her Instagram posts as well. Pretty peculiar for someone who claims to be totally secure with themselves. Now maybe I'm wrong here. Maybe she does accept herself as she is. Maybe she is totally happy with being fat. But there's enough evidence throughout her Instagram posts and her stories on Ravishly to suggest otherwise. And if that's true, is it not a little disturbing that someone who's trying to help women accept themselves as they are does not seem to accept herself as she is? If you're promising people that by shunning diet culture and eating whatever they want 24/7, they'll find the peace that they're looking for with their bodies, I would hope that you had already gone through that process and found that peace yourself. But from what I can see here, she hasn't managed to do that. So please enlighten me, Virgie. What is the benefit that's being offered here? If it's not acceptance and it's not self-love, what is it that's worth giving up your health for? If the insecurities just continue once you've given up any attempt at being healthy. See, the thing is, if Virgie Tovar wants to lie to herself and tell herself that society is the one with the issue, not her, if she wants to just believe that she was born fat and there's nothing she can do about it, then go ahead. No one cares. You have the right to remain fat or whatever. But talking about health like it's a societal construct to your followers who trust you, and acting like lifestyle factors don't have an impact on people's quality of life and outcomes, people believe her. She's literally helping people delude themselves into giving up and eating themselves sick. No one cares if you want to be fat, and most reasonable people respect your right to love your body the way that it is. But don't help other people delude themselves the way you've deluded yourself.
It's so rich.
I think we can all agree that obsessing over cutting calories, beating yourself up over your food choices, or making yourself feel bad because you don't like your body are all unhealthy behaviors. But obsessing over food, having zero control over your intake, and generally making no effort to restrict yourself from foods that are literally designed in a lab to override your body's ability to eat intuitively are two sides of the same coin. If you have a pet goldfish and it dies because you weren't feeding enough, well, you're not a very good pet owner. But guess what? You're an equally poor pet owner if it dies because you were feeding it too much. In the world that we live in right now, it's really hard to pin down what a healthy relationship with food actually looks like. But it's pretty clear that it's not on the extreme of either end. There's a huge difference between jumping from fad diet to drop weight as quickly as possible because you hate your body, and learning what it means to live a healthier lifestyle. And a movement that fails to make this distinction in order to push its own agenda doesn't really sound like something that anyone should aspire to be a part of. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you in the next one.
So remember, the next time that you're on the verge of committing a CRFI, be an ally to women rather than an accomplice to patriarchy.